So it's my great pleasure to introduce Ulrike Sievers this evening. Ulrike has been a Waldorf teacher for many years, both a teacher of English but also of biology. And she has also more recently spent quite a number of years as school leader in her school in Hamburg, in the Christian Morgenstern Schule in Hamburg. And she is active in teacher education, and she has built up and maintained the e-learning platform Eleva, which is short for e-learning Waldorf, which she might mention herself, which has been offering courses and materials for teachers' professional development now for many years. So, Ulrike, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy that Jost invited me to give a talk today. And when when you asked me what the title could be, um, I thought about what's important for me, and pretty soon the word future came up. Um, because I like to look ahead and see sort of what's waiting for us in my role as a teacher and teacher educator. I always look at the sort of potential. What do the students, what do the teachers need to move on into the future? And as I'm German and we like compounds, there we needed an adjective, so future needed an sort of addition, and this is how fit came up. And with fit, I could have said literate, future literate, such similar to media literate. Um, and I think this is what I mean with future fit. So what can help us to understand the future? How can we deal with the future? And how can we learn to use or to use the future, not, but how to design to shape the future? And also, can we understand the effect that future has on us? So all those aspects are part of literate, and this is also what I mean with future fit. Um, so the question is how future fit is Waldorf. And when I talk about Waldorf, I talk about, on the one hand, Waldorf pedagogy, anthroposophy, but I also talk about people and I talk about schools. And this is not always the same because there's also, I guess, a clear division between potential and reality. Um, so you always have to decide for yourself, is this more potential or is this more reality in your situation? Mm, so what makes us future fit? What do people need to be able to shape their future? To not just wait till future happens, but to go into the future. And before I tell you all the things that I have collected, I would like you to participate because one aspect that we all need for future is agency. So I would like you to become active and just write a word or two into the chat what you think, what young people need to step into the future. So, what are qualities, what are skills that we need to become future fit? I don't read them all, but you can go on typing that because otherwise I think I might as well finish my lecture here. um, no, well, so yeah, what I forgot is to say how I'm going to structure my lecture. I will first look at what I just asked you. So, what are qualities, what are skills we need to face the future? Then I will look at how is the present situation? How do I see? What do I observe? And then in the last step, I will ask the question what Waldorf pedagogy can offer us um, to deal with what we see. Okay, so you will recognize some of the things that we can now see in the chat, also in what I'm going to say. And I think the most difficult thing in future is that it hasn't happened yet, and nobody really knows what's going on. But as we can see from all the words in the chat as well, there is very little concrete knowledge in there. And a lot of those aspects, imagination, collaboration, flexibility, all those aspects are more on the soft skill level. So we need actually, we need an attitude to face future. Flexibility, team capability. So we need to be team players. We need to be open to compromise. We know those wicked problems of today, climate, wars, resources, all those aspects need the willingness of people to work together and to find compromises, because there are no one-to-one good solutions for many things. So this flexibility and creativity, it's wonderful if this comes together with resilience. I think I also read resilience in the chat. So resilience is sort of an inner power, an inner strength that develops out of the experience of coherence. I think we heard about that also in Jost's talk. And so this feeling of coherence can develop when people are in situations and in a community where they have the feeling they understand what is asked of them, they can manage, and it is meaningful for them. And mostly this is experienced in a community, so a community of coherence. When I thought about future already some time ago, I came across a book by a future researcher. She is called Florence Gaub, and her book, so far it's only appeared in German, Zukunft, eine Handlungsanweisung. I looked it up, it will be published in English in April 26, and it will be called The Future, a User's Guide. So Florence Gaub's motivation to write about future was her observation that many people today seem to be paralyzed because the world is so complex and everything we hear about the world seems so big and so out of our reach that we easily develop this feeling we can't do anything about the future. It just happens to us. And in order to overcome this paralysis, well, okay, I'm not a native speaker of English. In order to overcome this feeling of not being able to do anything, she took a closer look at what future actually is. And it's a really interesting book to read. Also, when I found out that the concept of future is not at all that old, some 100 years. And so she differentiates between 4 different futures. The first future is what we do tomorrow, what I decide to cook tomorrow, or where I decide to go for the weekend. So it's the immediate future that we can do something about, that we can decide. Then the second future is our life planning. So where the profession I take on, where I travel, maybe who I marry or where I live. So this is sort of the second future, and this is still pretty much in our own, or part of our own agency. A little bit probably depending on the context, on the society, on the culture, but here we still have the possibility to take decisions and shape the future. The third future is what we experience in society, politics, environmental issues. Those are a bit further out, and we don't have a direct influence on them. In democracies, we can go and vote, so we are not totally paralyzed, but this is a little bit further out. And then the fourth, the highest future, is that's what's often related with religion, sort of the idea what's far out there. So that's totally out of our reach. And in her book, she develops the thesis that in order to be able to create future, to manage future, we need imagination, because we need to develop as many images or pictures of a possible future. So if in our imagination we can come up with images of how the future could be, then we feel more able to create this future ourselves. And so people with a lot of experience have more sort of basis to take, or that they can use to create these images. And younger people have to learn more to do that. So imagination and creativity and agency are very important qualities, according to Florence Gaub. The second person or book or attitude theory that for me is very important in connection with future is Otto Scharmer, Theory U. One of his books is Leading from the Emerging Future. And there he sort of describes how we can, from observing the present state as it is, from as many perspectives as possible, we can get an image of what is at the moment, and through meditation can get a feeling for what's coming from the future. That's a very short version of Theory U. So, but what's important is that this quality of listening and observation and asking many people what's their vision, what's their perception of the situation at the moment. And if we have a holistic image of the present, then we can sort of meditate and get a feeling of what's waiting, what's the future is calling, or yeah, sometimes it's in forms of, it's not full concepts often, but it's in forms of colors, of words, of movements. And it also includes several artistic activities. So that out of this comes an idea for a prototype of what wants to crystallize, of what wants to come into reality. So this would be tools for actively shaping the future. And this also has a spiritual dimension. So here the quality is mainly the listening and the deep perception. So I have sort of summarized that here in a slide. So we have this flexibility, creativity, open to compromise, then resilience and understanding of the future, agency, listening. We need sort of community of coherence. We need multi-perspective observation and listening, meditation, awareness practices. So all these tools and qualities are important, important things to learn, to acquire in order to become able to shape the future. So my next question would be, and now you're invited again, I think probably everybody could pretty quickly name several practices that we find in Waldorf schools that support creativity, that invite imagination, that, for example, the class community, there we find communities of coherence. So there are a lot of valuable practices with regard to these future fit competences. But as nobody is perfect, there are also sort of challenges, blind spots. Uh, and I would like you to maybe um, from your own experience, from your own school reality, what would you say, what are the sort of challenges where we might want to put some focus on that might to be improved in order to even support more these qualities that we need? I will attempt to give a description of how I experience or perceive or observe Waldorf. I'm very aware of the fact that I don't know all Waldorf schools and all Waldorf communities. Um, from many talks I have with Waldorf colleagues, because I'm sort of busy in Waldorf education, and I do a podcast in Germany where I talk with Waldorf colleagues from different schools, and I'm also traveling in the Waldorf world. So I have quite a wide range of perceptions, but probably your school might look totally different, or maybe you find the same aspects in your school. So from what I read in the chat, the situations don't seem to be totally different in other places. I would like to divide these challenges. I call them challenges or realities or situations. I would like to divide them according to Otto Schama into the three divides that he describes in his books. So he calls it the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. The ecological divide is our disconnection to the world. And I think this is one aspect that we observe in our children, as well as in ourselves, that often we are sort of disconnected to the world, disconnected from nature, depending on where the school is. So we are trying a lot of things in Waldorf here to compensate this disconnection, also through all the virtual worlds that we are sort of involved in. So in Waldorf schools, we sort of go outside and try to bring the children into the world. But still, I think the general tendency in the world at the moment is this disconnection. It's also related to what Hartmut Rosa says in his book about resonance, so that we are sort of losing this deep connection to the world, that we really have an experience of a meaning in the world, that the world speaks to us. The second divide is the social divide. So when we look at the situation in many schools, the situation as it is relevant for a lot of young people, the question of communication and social media is very dominant, and also the problem of bullying, of social disconnection, of blaming, shaming is very widespread, and so we have quite a challenge here. Also, when I look into schools among colleagues, there is also often, when you look into schools, you see some disruption. You see different groups that don't relate so well with each other. So, so this missing communication is also visible among teachers, I think. Another aspect today is the fast judgment. We all know that from also social media or the internet, always you click the button, I like or I don't dislike. And so we are more and more willing to make fast judgment also about other people, without listening, without going into conversation. And this often also leads to exclusion of certain groups of people. Mm, Another aspect that we can see, and I think this can also be seen in the chat, is this question of bubbles. Often it's sort of political opinions, or so people are in a sort of bubble of people with the same opinion. And one aspect of Waldorf is, I think, can also be seen here, that we don't look beyond the fence, as we say in German. We stay in the Waldorf bubble and don't really widen our interest beyond that. Mm. So I think those are the most relevant social divides that we deal with. We also, what I think in what I observe in schools is, for example, the division between class teachers and subject teachers. I was at a school now recently where this was the problem, that the class teachers need so much space that the subject teachers feel sort of pressed to the rim. And I remember from Corona times that schools sort of only the class teachers could stay, and the subject teachers, they lost their job because the schools couldn't pay. That is a financial reason, but that makes a sort of a division between two groups of teachers. Often you also find that between class teachers and upper school teachers. So within the community of teachers, there are sort of different groups, and sometimes also different hierarchies. Okay, so the third divide, Sharma calls that the spiritual divide, and it's actually the disconnection between me and myself, my inner self. So I think that for one point, this shows in the big topic of attention and awareness. Um, Attention is a very relevant topic today. We see that in children, the problem with attention, because nowadays our attention is grabbed by lots of digital gadgets. And so everybody is sort of asking for our attention. And it becomes more and more difficult for people to stay with themselves. So to not be outside too much. And not get lost in the outside, but to come sort of to find a state of awareness, of inner, of meditation, of a connection to ourself, to our own meaning, to our own potential. What we also observe on the personal level is the phenomenon of exhaustion and burnout, or psychological problems for young people already. So there seems to be quite a challenge in this field of personal development or personal well-being. Yeah, so we have the three divides: ecological, social, and spiritual. And when we look, especially those were more general aspects. When we look especially at schools, I think communication and judgment are important aspects. Which communication structures do we find that don't exhaust us, but those what are clear? We have, on a personal level, this question of attention, awareness, spiritual connection, motivation, and agency. On a structural level, I see a struggle for clear structures, but I also see that schools are looking for structures and sort of again and again look for new structures. There doesn't seem to be a sort of a structure that solves all the problems. Um, on the structural level, I think also a challenge is how we relate to the outside world. So how much do we give in to outer requirements? Um, when we are in, that's different in different countries, but in Germany, we have certain rules or certain laws that we have to follow from the government. Mm, but the question is always how much freedom do we find to realize our Waldorf ideas? And sometimes I have the feeling, especially in the upper school, that we overachieve. We do more than we need to do. We could take much more freedom, but sort of the requirements are overfulfilled in a way. And the last aspect here that I would like to mention, that's then also, yeah, is sort of the space for adult learning. And when we look at that, this is actually the teachers' conferences. I'm always surprised or sad that I hear from so many schools that the conferences are experienced as exhausting, as a waste of time, as spaces for fighting, or only three people talk and the others can't say anything. So there's so much organizational stuff that there's no pedagogical work possible. There are very little artistic activities, and it's definitely not experienced as a recreational space. So the teachers' meetings, the collaboration between the teachers seems also to be a big challenge. Um, so among all these things that are so wonderful, we have to face quite some challenges as well. And now the question would be um, if we look at what Waldorf pedagogy, theory, anthroposophy, what that has to offer, where do we find the treasures or the gems that could help us to overcome these challenges? And if you like to become active again, you are warmly welcome to write that into the chat as well. Uh, what comes to your mind when you think about what's the potential in Waldorf pedagogy? Okay, so there definitely are a lot of treasures. And that maybe the challenge is how we use these treasures to make them maybe less theoretical and more practical. Um, okay, I just have to. So when we look at, oops, yeah, I would like to focus on a few aspects that are mainly meant for teachers, because I feel that the seed of the future of Waldorf pedagogy is in the College of Teachers. It's not in structures. It's nice to have beautiful buildings and a beautiful site and a good curriculum, but if the people who carry that, if the teachers are not healthy, enthusiastic, and motivated, and capable, then it's very difficult. So we are actually at the heart of Waldorf pedagogy, of Waldorf schools. And when we look at what Steiner gave to the teachers for their own development, I think first of all, this concept of lifelong learning, it's interesting to reflect on that. We can say that very quickly, but to reflect on that again and again in teachers' meetings and really see, what does that mean? Do I really want to learn? What does learning mean? What is transformation in learning? What does it take? What do you need for learning? What do I need for learning? When I started at my first job at a Waldorf school, that was 1998, I met a situation where, for example, the attitude was that the only real meditation are the Steiner meditations, and all this other nonsense. This can't be taken seriously, and I think this today is probably has changed. We know that there are lot of different ways of meditation and awareness practices, and I think it's good to include them and to find ways of sharing experiences like that in the College of Teachers. I find the 6 subsidiary exercises by Steiner really helpful, and we also did them in the conference together. So just to sort of share possibilities for inner development, not so much as a pressure or as a expectation, but more as treasures, and sort of sharing what can we get out of them and how can we deal with that. Because I think today a lot of people are very happy. They are in search of that. And yes, we can really do things together. And also practice research is, I think, this attitude of going on researching our lessons together, but all this has to be done in the school together with other colleagues. I think it can't just be handed over to our private practice. So it's about doing things together. And when I thought about this today, when I was walking outside, I thought it's just like a fitness studio, right? If you just look at the machines, you don't get fit. So if you just sort of read the text or look at the books or know about it, it won't make you fit. It's sort of, you have to do it together. And I think today this together is very, very important. And so this together is sort of what could make us to a community of coherence, in which the colleagues can make sense, they have agency, and they can develop resilience. In a recent article, Otto Scharmer wrote about islands of coherence, and sort of especially in a world where there is so much disruption and where are so many things that we have difficulties to relate to, or we might be afraid of, there's a lot of anxiety. It's even more important to have communities where people strive for a same vision, have a same aim, and can work together and know that they are on a sort of same basis together. And I chose this picture because one of the aspects that I find especially important is sort of the transgenerational working together. I often experience colleagues who come to workshops. I do workshops about foreign language learning, and they come and they say, when I bring this into my school, the colleagues say, we don't do that here. We have lists of vocabularies, we have tests, we have school books and course books, and we don't want this sort of modern stuff. So this, how young new teachers and older experienced teachers come together, I think this is a big challenge. I think older teachers might sometimes be frightened, or they feel they are not seen enough. And younger teachers also have the feeling they are not seen, they don't have any space for agency. So when Martin talked about these 3 stages of being a teacher, apprentice, traveling teacher, and master, I thought, I mean, this is taken, I think, from craftsmen. And when you're a carpenter, you're probably either an apprentice, traveling, or master. But as teachers, we have so many different fields and so many different skills that we need that I think here we need to differentiate. So somebody might be an apprentice in teaching English, but at the same time, he might be already a master in moderating a conference or in structuring sort of or organizing something. So when we meet people, when we come together across generations and sort of different years of experience, it's very important to look at the whole person and see their different skills. And maybe we had that younger people come with a lot of knowledge about media and technology, and so older colleagues could learn from them and at the same time sort of share their experience. So I think we need a lot more awareness here to really appreciate everybody's skills and possibilities. The the treasure of or the purpose of the conferences is really nice, well expressed, I think, in the Ilkley course that Steiner gave in 1923. So maybe I just give you a minute to read the text, then I don't have to read it aloud. So when we hear that in schools there is no time for child study or for pedagogical exchange because there's so much organizational stuff that is going on, it's good to remember this, that this treasure of conferences is really, of the weekly meetings, is really meant to build a body of knowledge, of experience, of knowing from each other. And I think sometimes teachers tend to stay in their own rooms and close the door and don't talk so much about their lessons. And I think I just heard yesterday that Sierra, what I don't know his first name, but he just wrote a book about the ongoing Hattie study, where it says that teachers spend very little time generally talking about their lessons with each other. And that's an interesting finding, I think. So, and this is actually what our weekly meetings are for. And I think we could sort of just frame that and put that into our teachers' room to remind us that this is actually the core of our collaboration and cooperation. What I think what teachers' conferences should also be a space for is to look beyond. And we had that also in Martin's lecture. I think this he mentioned how important it is to look beyond our Waldorf world. And there are a lot of things that have developed since 1919. So the whole field of ecology, for example, or technology, media. There are a lot of aspects that can add to the foundation of Waldorf pedagogy, and this can give us new perspectives or can deepen our understanding, or can also, for example, in foreign language learning, there are a lot of findings that can support the Waldorf approach. And I think it also helps in conversation with parents and also teachers to show that this is not some idea, but it is sort of, there's a lot of research behind that, why performative language learning or immersion is really valuable and relevant. And so we can sort of widen our horizon and learn a lot from that. People who have heard me before might have heard this verse as well. It's a verse for meditation. For me, this is also an important element for the conference work, for the teachers' conference work, because for me, it brings the human being into the center. So devote oneself to matter means souls will shatter. To find oneself in the spirit means to connect with people. To see oneself in the other means to build new worlds. It doesn't sound so nice as it sounds in German, because in German it rhymes, but it's very difficult to translate. But I think that, and you see that this is sort of my understanding of our task today in Waldorf pedagogy and in the world, is this element of seeing the other person, of seeing the human being in the other person, and that this is actually our core task with the students, before that we look at their achievements or how well they can speak English. It's always the person in the foreground. And I think this is also very helpful to practice this with our colleagues. So you might have noticed that the teachers meeting are at the moment, they are sort of my main focus. I've done an online course on the Eleva platform about how we could design or shape teachers' meetings, teachers' work, and to make it sort of make us more resilient, to make it recreational, but also to build this community of practice. And so I think this space is also a space where we can learn about moderation, about group work. So where we can learn methods for adult learning, but also methods for learning that we can then apply in our lessons. I was talking about the teachers' meetings and about the possibility to shape them in a way that we also learn, or we use a lot of methods to have everybody active, to do action research together, to have these collegial intervision circles, to do child studies, but also learn about leadership, communication practices. So I think this can be a space where we can really actively develop together and develop skills together. In this, the moderation is a very important part. I get that feedback again and again, that really somebody moderates, structures the planning, and makes sure that everybody feels safe, seen, and heard and understood. And ideally, these Thursday afternoons should be structured in ways, I think, that they support the understanding of Waldorf pedagogy, that they also enable us to experience artistic activities and movement, and that they support the community building and the encounter of each other, so that we ourselves create spaces for rhythmical, breathing, artistic learning, which will then also enable us to create similar spaces with the students. I think learning from examples and learning based on experience does not stop only because we are 25 or older. The learning process still is basically very similar. So in the online course I just made a lot of suggestions of things that we could do in the conference time. Um, and it's sort of a prototype. It's much too much, but it just sort of should inspire us to um, yeah, to take into account, to sit down together and see how can we make these spaces for our development and our learning lively, interesting, and valuable. Okay, so that's the plan B. The yeah. Um, yes, right. Okay, so yes, I think that was looking at the resources we have. Um, so what we need is actually, I think, what we need to realize this potential that Waldorf pedagogy has to make us future fit is a vision of whatever that vision is in your school. My vision would be to have a community in which we practice awareness together, in which we want and enjoy to learn and develop, where we create safe spaces in which transformational experience-based learning can take place, that we are open to the inside and the outside world, and that we don't forget that being in a community is also fun and should also be recreational, and there should be movement and artistic activities, so that it is also regenerative. And then we like to come Thursday afternoons to our conferences. But what I also think is important to keep in mind that people are different. For example, people have small children, or so people need space to relax, or to so that the structure of the conference also needs space for breaks and for breathing out, and should be in a way that it is inclusive for everybody, that everybody is able to participate. And this then will hopefully spread into the school community. Okay, and now I have talked enough. And yes, so I'm looking forward to your contributions.
So thank you very much, Ulrike. Um, Maybe we just open the floor, as it were, to any comments or people sharing experiences or questions. But I think this is also very much a space for sharing. How do you experience? Are your teachers' meetings a location of refreshing, future-orientated activities? Or has your school got rid of those events altogether? Yeah. So, Christoph, you've put your hand up, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Ulrike, for this wide overview. I fear I'm not really fit for the future. I really don't. But I'm curious what will happen. For me, it's a very open space. I think one thing I know for sure, I think, that is that we cannot continue the way we do it till now. I think we need, uh, and that's the end of my story. I do not know. I do not know what will come, but I'm sure we need a completely new impulse to make the Waldorf idea fit for the future. Continuing the way we did it for this 100 years, that's for me. Uh, uh, I think that will not work. But how a new impulse will look like, I have no idea. That is my problem. But that something new is coming and is needed, that I feel for sure. And I would like to ask you, Ulrike, is that also your feeling? That the way we have done it till now is ending?
Yeah.
I always think about Steiner when the first Goetheanum burned down. He did not replace it with the same. He shaped something totally new, but so brutally new that you can hardly imagine what was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you gave a wonderful overview. And with all these things you said, and this, they are very, very valuable, what you said, of course. The big problem is it has to be done.
Yes. Right.
Basically, we all know it, but it has to be done. And if that is the beginning of a new era for the Waldorf movement, I do not know. But the way we do it now, sooner or later, and I guess sooner, it will end. I think.
Mm.
And
I
then
think.
it's in different places on the world.
Mm-hmm.
The levels are very different. So
Mm-hmm.
if you look in South America or in China, where Martin just was, there everything is fresh and beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So they will not understand what I say now.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very complex.
Yeah. I think every school, every community has to find their own most urgent problem.
Mm,
And in some places, it is really not being transparent.
mm,
And I think this just doing, I mean, this is a revolutionary step. If you take the step to just be a human being and be really honest and have no hierarchy and don't exclude and sort of, I mean, this is a huge step. I mean, it's
mm,
a huge development and nobody can take it in just one step. But for me, yeah, I maybe I'm an optimist or I don't know, idealist, but I think this human development is really at the core of it.
mm.
But there are some people
Yeah, there
wanting
are
to.
some. I'm keeping track of the sequence. We have Shiva, if that's the correct pronunciation, and then we have Sarah, and then we have Irina. Shiva.
Thank you very much for this lecture. It's been amazing to listen to you and then to have that little bit of clarity on what are we looking at, what are the challenges and how can we overcome. And I think, like you mentioned, the challenges are almost similar, even though we come from very different worlds, different communities, nationalities, and all of that. For me, I have always felt that even though there's agency, the lack of autonomy can be a huge hurdle because sometimes, even when you have the capacity to bring that change, you really have to go through a system and fight for it at times. And considering what we are going through, sometimes it's tiring. It's tiring to go again and again and knock on doors and walls. I feel that I have always found being open has helped me, like to hold spaces where I'm not going with my prejudices and judgments. That has really helped me. And to be open about learning, but still the freedom to be able to relearn and unlearn. That has helped me in my journey, I should say. And community building is something that I feel, and I have experienced it here, is a very long process. It's a tedious process. It requires a lot of patience and, like you mentioned, compromises. Loads of, those spaces where we have to step back and allow the other human being to open up. this, I think, if we could take it to our children to be this individual who has personal values and beliefs, but is also open to listen to the other human being. I think that as educators we could do in our classrooms without having to, fight for all of the other changes, these small changes that we do, that we bring in these individuals. I think it could be our first step, regardless of where we are and all of that.
Thank you. I
Thank
wonder
you.
if I could pass on to Sarah Nelson, if there are other Sarahs, but Sarah Nelson's the one I can see.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Thank you so much, Ulrike, for sparking so many thoughts. The main thought that I'm living with after hearing your lecture is one of the greatest impediments to being future fit is lack of courage. And what really hits me with why we have this, all of this is fear. Is fear. We are bombarded by fear. I'm speaking to you from the United States right now, where we have great fear of what's coming to meet us in the future in that third realm of the future, which is the political, of which we feel we have so little control over. And when I think about colleagues and why we don't talk to each other about what we're doing in our classrooms, it's fear. It's fear that I'm not meeting this high ideal that I've set for myself, that we've all set for ourselves as Waldorf educators, right? Where we're afraid to innovate, to talk about our innovations and the things we're doing, and that it might not be just the right thing. And it's so much easier to just fall back on what others have done before us that are tried and true. But I think for myself, what really brings me through that fear is coming back to the deep roots of anthroposophy. Even some of the most basic educational lectures, that I may have come across, dozens of times, because it takes me out of that third realm that I have so little control over and reminds me what I do have control over, which is my own agency, which is meeting my own self as spirit and the power that's in that. So I just wanted to bring those thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you, Sarah. Irina? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Perfect. Great pronunciation. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello. Thank you so much for this wonderful and inspiring lecture. Ulrike, it was just so great because we are on holidays now, and I was somehow taken back again to school. And I thought, oh, I have to attend this lecture because this should be very meaningful. And this is exactly what I was thinking about the whole month because this year I took my 11th class first class, so for 11th time, and I also let go of class 13. It was my sixth class 13 last year. So, and I saw this big change between, those people who come and those human beings who leave school, and I see what their needs are, and I don't know really whether those needs would stay the same, like over and over the time. And this first class, it was so hungry for stories. And I thought, yes, this is what we shall give them. This is just, we have to go back where we all come from to this orality. We have to sustain it through all 13 years. And even if the ministry says you have to stick to exams, you do those drills, learn, make them like hate learning. No, we just have to give them this because I noticed that in the middle school they just stopped talking. Class 9 and 10 somehow lower upper school they just stopped talking, and I think why does it happen? But just like Sarah said, it's just because of this fear, uncertainty. But telling stories, you cannot make mistakes. You can actually do anything. Tell stories about all those area studies, anything problems that concern you from class 1 to 13. And then I thought, yes, I just have to make this my mission for this year, just to tell them stories and tell them really and encourage them in the middle school, buy books in whatever version possible. I don't know, audio books, Kindle books, printed books, whatever. Just make them read texts And then they will create their own stories. This is somehow what we lose. Somehow we just want to stick to those grammar exercises, which are, they do not bring much. And this is just that I really wanted to share that maybe stories save the world.
Maybe,
So
maybe, maybe you could
That's
do it the other way around. Maybe you could encourage students to tell stories and
yes,
then
yeah.
help them to tell better stories. I think
Exactly.
that's
This is yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And I was just torturing them. I gave them exercises like, like Peter Lutzke taught us. He just played some I don't know, audio music, and you let them write their stories. And they say, how much time do we have? And you say, you have 20 minutes. Oh no, we are not able to write for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, they say, can we write more and more? And then you give them additional hour because this is their baby, and then you see how much they love their stories, and they say, "Will you give them back?" They're not interested in the marks at all. They're just interested whether you want to read them and your kind of reaction, but not really judgment. And they love this. And so it's class 13, and they write stories for pages. And this is just, yeah, as Martin says, yeah, you let them tell their stories, and they're just beautiful. They listen to the same track, but some people write about romantic stories, others write about Masha and Three Little Piglets or whatever. So they're all different.
yeah.
Yeah, this is
And I
just
think,
what
So,
I wanted to
but
encourage you.
it
Ulrike?
takes your courage. It takes your courage to do that, right? And this is, I think, what Sarah said. We need to be courageous, and I think the storytelling can also be part of teachers' meetings. If you, in this enthusiastic way, tell about how you use story, then this can encourage other teachers to do the same and to be courageous. So storytelling is not just in the classroom. I think it's also a very valuable tool among colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So sharing ideas, or first of all, trying out creative teaching approaches, and then sharing that with your colleagues, I think is people are shy of doing that because they feel perhaps that it's not adequate, or perhaps even worse. There was a comment in the chat earlier on, which I've kind of lost, that was afraid of not being Waldorf enough. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else experiences that. There is this kind of strange sense of, is it Waldorf enough? And it's very hard to answer that. Benedict, who's just put something into the chat, could say something about what theme-centered interaction is. Benedict, are you there? You put it into the chat. Looks very interesting, but maybe you could just say a few words about it.
Yes, I'm here.
There
Sorry,
you are. Okay, yeah, you.
um, I'm not in the best.
That's okay. We have a face. We have a face with a beard. Yeah.
Yes, true. Um, yeah, like with the link which can be seen in the chat, one can see the concept of Ruth Cohen called theme-centered interaction, which is an approach of like a humanistic approach of how to shape, or a better word, what means gestalten?
To shape, to give form to it.
Okay, to give to shape living learning experiences, or to shape social processes. And one aspect of it is the four-factor model, where she describes that every social process consists of four factors, where there is the individual on the one side, and the group on the other side, or the group dynamic, and the topic on the third. And all this is connected by the so-called globe, like things which um, I don't want to use the word interfere, but which take um, mm, I'm lacking the vocabulary, or I can't find it at the moment.
That's
Um,
okay.
like globe aspects are things which just take sorry, I don't find it, but like weather conditions can be a globe aspect, or political aspects, but also the temperature in a room, or how people have eaten or have not eaten, or are healthy or not, like, and all these four things are like are in her idea should be seen equally important. And like what theme-centered interactions wants to help people is to create, or to practice a kind of attitude where one has the ability to have these four factors in mind in different situations, and see where is maybe a lack of attendance to the one or the other aspect.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. I think that's given us an idea so that we can go on to that link and check that out. Ulrike, you put your hand up.
Yes.
Did you want?
Yes, I wanted to add or say something about two contributions in the chat. The one about it might be dangerous to have these huge ideals or visions somewhere out. So what I wanted to actually point out today was not the, I mean, it's huge to say to become human, but it's about the next little step. So I think the encouragement is always to have one idea that we can realize. As we heard Irina, this telling stories in class 13 can be, I mean, if we all have little projects where we can do something and change something, then the whole thing will also move. So it is, I think, the future always starts in the next minute, not next year. So that I think is true. And this question with motivation and whether young people are motivated or not, sometimes I think maybe we just need to sit together and see what are everybody's needs. If everybody shares how they feel about the conferences, why they feel it's a waste of time, what they would need, I think it's a lot about listening and getting first an image of what people need, and this might be very different from what we need or what we think other people need. So I think this listening to each other and finding out about each other is actually always a helpful first step. And there, these communication practices and what we just heard from Benedict Ruth-Kohn, or these communication theories are very, very helpful.
Yeah, and there is, of course, a huge amount of literature because this is a field where actually everybody has questions. And in a way, you can, take a sabbatical and read all the latest literature. Would you be any wiser? Um, or whether you can perhaps take these smaller steps, which I think is what Ulrike's message has been within your teachers' meetings. But Liz has put her hand up in faraway California, I believe.
Where it's raining.
Where it's raining, gosh.
Yeah, I'm trying a little agency here. Ulrike, thank you. This is really helpful, and it addresses, I think, one of the issues that's really rising to the surface in our schools. I'm in the United States. I'm not part of a faculty anymore, but I'm in a lot of schools, in and out of a lot of schools. And I think we've necessarily placed a lot of emphasis on the dysregulation, the challenges of the children, the problems of parenting, etc. And yet what we are seeing, at least in our schools, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with Kim John Payne, who's done a lot of work on behavior systems, et cetera, excellent work, is that the adult realm within our schools is not okay. And as with so many other things, one of the things I'm really grateful for you to you today is that you've named it, and not just named it, but sort of gone to the heart of it. Many of our faculty meetings, I think, have been eaten by a trend that started, it's very much of the century trend, I think, towards bureaucracy in our schools, showing that we've got systems and structures, checks and balances, mandates, etc., etc. And they've been necessary, but the cost, I think, is this heart, the spiritual heart work that you are talking about. So I'm very grateful that you've articulated this and that you are emphasizing that we actually need to take action. I think that's all I can say, but thank you.
Thank you, Liz. That was an important voice there. Does our organization get in the way of our life? Yeah, too
And
much.
I think it's much easier to say the children are not doing well or the parents are the problem than to turn that inwards into our adult working.
Yeah, I think it's in a way it's a kind of taboo subject because we're all supposed to be on a path of schooling, and that functions, then that's fine, and and therefore we don't need to kind of address it, or we're shy, or we go the other direction, is that we organize ourselves to death. Is that we had we some years ago we calculated how much money Waldorf schools are spending in Germany on external consultants in relation to the effectiveness of actual transformational change. It's very difficult to measure these things, but the lived experiences of many of the people who've participated in it, one would have to say one is skeptical that transformational change comes about in that way. Although these are all great people with great ideas, it somehow works in other institutions and very rarely works in Waldorf for some kind of reason. That's an interesting fact about it. Yeah, any more observations? We're swinging a little bit sort of between sort of grand visions of uplifting interactivity and burdened by the fact that we all know that this is much harder in everyday practice than it should be. Yeah. And I think we've had a few lights, the pedagogy, the students being innovative in the classroom as a way of enlivening, which is after all what the Ilkley quotation is supposed to suggest, that the teachers bring their not just their gossip and not just their spontaneous whatever occurs to them, but to bring things that they've thought about in the course of their practice and share that, bring it into the pool, I think it says in the translation, put it into the pool so that everybody can benefit by it. And that can be, I think, when I think about it, some of the most important contributions in teachers' meetings have actually been very authentic and simple. Yeah. Ulrike.
Yeah, I just thought about one aspect. I mean, the one aspect is sort of on a human level, on respect, mutual respect. I think another aspect is also that sometimes I feel Waldorf schools are quite exploitive. Could you say that? Is that an adjective? They are exploiting their colleagues. I mean, they are
Exploitative.
exploiting each other actually, um, by asking that all this self-government is done on top of the teaching. And I think this is also a question of sort of respect. How can we come to structures? I think structures can't solve all problems, but some structures are good to create at least a sort of scaffold of fairness and of manageability. I think, yeah, this sort of that it is taken into account that governance needs some time and this needs some resources, and it's not just always the people who are full of energy who do everything on top, but that we also need a sort of fair system there. But Benedict wanted to add something.
Yeah, Benedict has put his yellow hand up again. Benedict, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I just shared one thing in the chat, which
Ah,
could be
yeah.
interesting I couldn't find it, or I haven't searched for it in English because I'm on the phone and I can't do everything. But maybe a person can look for it in the internet and can share the English title. Yes, maybe this can be interesting.
Yes, it's very inspiring.
The Koenraad van Houten book. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Which exists in English. Yeah, obviously. I think I can't remember what it's called now, but I can see it on my bookcase, but my glasses don't help me. So, but you can check it out. In German, there is a recent edition of that, a kind of revised edition of it, has been published a few years ago.
Yeah, I think the one sort of looking inside and outside, it's important to look at one school to make this into an island of coherence, also with the parents and with students together, but then also to connect. And I think this connecting with other schools, with other countries, this also widens our view and sort of can encourage us and empower us and give us new perspectives. So that could be, it's like a mycelium or sort of growing. And I think these images could be sort of future images, even if they don't all come true. It's a bit like writing science fiction. In Florence Gaub's book, she describes this first science fiction writers were they started doing that when this concept of future developed more clearly. So science fiction is actually an attempt to create images of the future. And they don't always come true, but they motivate us and they can sort of empower us and give us energy. So
could you just say what you mean by islands of coherence?
Well, islands of coherence is what I refer to, that Otto Scharmer called that a community of coherence. So you have a community like a school or a group of people that want to work together on a basis of the same understanding of pedagogy in this case, and come together as in a space or create spaces where they can learn together, work together, and yeah, where people who are in this community can develop resilience and then connect with other schools, with other schools in other countries. So that's why I like also to invite this dialogue. And on Eleva, and when I do Eleva courses, I always also invite the dialogue with other colleagues. So because that also widens our horizon.
So we don't have to change the whole system. We can change the little system that we're part of and connect to other systems that are changing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, small is beautiful and effective.
Yes.
I think at 1 minute to Central European 9 p.m., we should round up here and thank Ulrike for her talk and for sharing her thoughts with us. Next week, we look forward to meeting Rui Tyson from Stockholm, Sweden, who's going to be talking to us about how holistic is Waldorf education. And we look forward to that. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ulrike. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.